Story 1. My brother told me that he stopped being homophobic because he cared about me and could not see me any differently for being gay, even if he tried. It was really sweet, except I am not gay and have no idea why he thought I was. Story 2. Not me but my mom. She worked for a county in California in the vital records department. One of her job duties was performing civil wedding ceremonies. When gay marriage was legalized, she was all up in a tizzy over it. As a Christian, she felt that the term marriage should be held for opposite-sex couples only, and that there should be a different term for same-sex couples. She thought that every random couple who had been together for a week would be popping in to get married. We went round and round and round arguing about this in the weeks leading up to the day they would start doing the ceremonies in her office. She was dreading it. I had never seen her act like this before, so it was shocking. Day 1 comes and goes, and I call her to see how it went. Her first couple were octogenarian lesbians who had been living as roommates for 60 years. She said that she never cried so much as she did that day in the office. The absolute joy that people had over finally getting to be married. Her switch flipped just like that. She finally understood. Story 3. I grew up indoctrinated in the Mormon faith. Proposition 8 happened when I was in college. I stood in the middle of campus between classes holding up a big "Vote Yes" on Proposition 8 sign. Lots of gay people confronted me. That was fine. I was prepared to debate them because I knew I was right. What I was not prepared for was a right-wing stranger who stood next to me and started yelling about how we were going to show the gays who's boss in the election. I was mortified. I didn't share his sentiment in my head at all, but I realized that the average passerby saw us as the same. That started my path to rethinking my beliefs. Story 4. I was talking to one of the girls who was a year higher than me at school and said something like, "I have nothing against gays, just as long as they're not the really effeminate ones." She asked, "Why, what's wrong with them?" And I was stumped. I realized then that I was only parroting my parents and that I didn't actually share that opinion. Story 5. My dad told me he stopped being homophobic after I came out to him. He told me it really made him question his religion because to him, he knew I was made perfectly in God's image and fully believes that God doesn't make mistakes, but that those things clash with what the Catholic Church taught him throughout life. All of this contributed to him breaking like legitimately hundreds of years worth of my family's religious traditions because it made him realize that the church taught a completely bastardized version of what God is supposed to be. When he decided that God did make me in his image, who are human religious leaders to question God's actions? He's a pretty cool guy. Took me and my then girlfriend to Pride a year or so after this whole ordeal. Story 6. I actually met a real gay person. I was raised by extremely homophobic parents, to the point that it's a case of the lady doth protest too much. I also grew up in a church that taught that homosexuality was a sin. I honestly believed that gay people were perverts and just horrible people in general. Then I moved out on my own and ended up at a job where one of my coworkers was gay. He was the kindest person. He helped the rest of us if he finished early, and was just all around a great guy. In contrast, my super Christian boss was a stuck-up, arrogant snob who badmouthed her employees behind their backs. My eyes were opened, and I felt really horrible about my attitudes up to that point. Luckily, I had never been a hole to anyone, but my attitude still sucked. Thank God, literally, that I'm not a douchebag anymore. Story 7. I'm from Mumbai, India. And if any of you are from here, you'd know the translation "he's gay, let's beat him" in the local train rides in the 90s and early 2000s. Sadly, I was one of those people too. One day, during one of these incidents, the victim, with tears in his eyes, looked straight at me while a group of boys were beating him. I was laughing along with others. He just kept looking at me while I struggled to continue smiling. This was so normalized for us that it never occurred to us just how cruel we were. I couldn't take it any longer, and I just jumped in and said in Hindi, Okay, all of you have got your shots in. Enough now." They accused me of being gay too for wanting to help. We got off at the same stop, and I walked with him for a while. As if something was stuck in my throat, I uttered the word, "sorry," and for some reason, he said, "Thank you, Bia," meaning brother. The guilt of that day made me change my position completely. I overcompensated in helping them at every opportunity one got. Today, Mumbai is the safest place for the LGBTQ plus community in India, and the younger generations don't know the struggles of their predecessors, and that in itself is a win in my books. Story 8. So, I am not homophobic, I just want to share this story. There was this group of friends at college, the sort of outcasts who collected other outcasts. It was a weird bunch of good people. There was this one bloke we will call Ted. Ted was massively homophobic, to the point where anything that was seen as gay, he hated passionately. He hated the Rocky Horror Picture Show because it was gay. He hated Anthrax because the lead singer was shirtless, and he saw that as gay. The list was endless and stupid. One drunken party, I called Ted on his homophobia and said, "You can't be this hate-filled for no reason. Are you gay?" Well, he kicked off, stormed off, and the remaining few months at college he was threatening me. The rest of the group was being weird towards me. We all go to university and separate ways and stuff. A few years after that, I am grabbing a coffee and I bump into one of the girls from the group and we start talking, as you do, and she brings up Ted. Turns out Ted went to university and had a moment of self-reflection and sexual awakening and was engaged to a nice fellow named John. So, whenever I hear stories about people's homophobia, I think, where is that coming from? What are you trying to compensate for? Stay safe, folks. Story 9. Realizations. I should not interfere with people's lives, enforcing things on them that are not even my concern at all. The important thing is they're humans too. Story 10. Grew up, matured. I realized the religious judgment and bogeyman indoctrinated into me as a child was hatred and nonsense, just like most of the rest of their beliefs and morals. Story 11. It turned out that my best friend was gay. Before I found out, he helped me in the worst moments of my life like no other. Now, I will never say a bad word about these incredible people. It was an important lesson in my life as an adult. I was ashamed of my previous thoughts. It made me a better person, and I am proud of that. Life is the best teacher. Story 12. I was raised by homophobic parents, but I made a friend who was really into boys' love. I said, "That's a sin," one time to her, and she basically sat me down and had me read some Gundam Wing 1x2 fanfictions. It shattered my worldview almost instantly. Lo and behold, I am a gay man. Story 13. It was a couple of things. One, I just matured. I grew up in a household that was extremely homophobic, and I was taught since I was young that gays are evil. I moved out, started thinking for my own, and realized that was such a dumb idea, and changed the majority of my views as well. There was, however, some prejudice left over that I was unaware of, and that stuck around for a while. I got into a kind of depressive rut for a bit, and had a gay coworker who either noticed or was just friendly without noticing. He started telling me to get out of my place and come join him doing little things. We got food together a whole bunch and talked a lot. It did huge things for my mental health, just having a friend who cared about me as a person. It really just took me getting to know someone on a deeper personal level to understand that they're simply just normal humans. Why is there even a divide? He's to this day one of my favorite friends, and I'd do just about anything for him if he needed it. He's had my back when people would talk negatively and taught me some stuff about our job and even given me some useful info on women. Owe that dude a lot, and I know he knows I appreciate it, but to be honest, I don't know how to express to him how great of a friend he is and how much it's meant to me. Story 14. I was a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. I went to a gay support group one time. I realized gay people were just like everyone else, and that I maybe thought about sex too much and in the wrong ways. Story 15. The same thing that changed my opinion about non-whites. Let me explain. I grew up in a very small, 99% white, Southern Baptist town in the 90s. The biggest insult to your manhood was someone calling you a derogatory term for a homosexual. And a lot of people openly bragged about keeping black people out of our town, or we'll hang them. It was just normal everyday life, and it was pretty ingrained. It was literally phobia. I was afraid to be around anyone who wasn't straight or white because I had no idea what to expect or how to be around them. After high school, I moved away from that small town, joined the military, worked some jobs in St. Louis, and the very best cure for racism, sexism, homophobia, etc. is just plain exposure. Most of the negativity stems from ignorance, but a lot of people are afraid to expose themselves to other groups or cultures. Every now and then, I go back to my hometown to visit family or see social media posts from people I grew up with that never left, and it's truly just kind of sad. They never matured, they never experienced anything, still spouting off the same drama like it's still high school in the 90s. Getting out and meeting people from different walks of life is the best way to combat ignorance. Story 16. Just to be very clear, I wasn't homophobic, but I was just ignorant. What changed all this was a 6-month human sexuality class at my university and open communication with friends who were not heterosexual. I just listened to them and understood how they had to live because it's a life so different from mine. That's all you can do to be honest. Be open to change, listening, and empathizing with their struggles. Because it isn't fair that you're not allowed to feel love for someone out of judgment from everyone. Story 17. I was raised very conservative. While in college in 2008-ish, there was a proposition on the ballot to restrict same-sex couples from adopting children, and it came up during some downtime in one class. I explained that my understanding was gay people were statistically more likely to be child molesters, and passing the bill would keep children safe. Yeah, I was that guy. One member of the group I was speaking with got pretty heated and said that wherever I heard that is just spreading homophobic nonsense, making up statistics, and that I should do my own research before believing something so inflammatory toward any group of people. It made a bit of a scene, and I also noticed she seemed to be holding back tears. Through the rest of the day, I couldn't stop thinking about how, obviously, that can't be a real statistic. It makes no sense for an entire subset of people to be predisposed to pedophilia, and how much I upset my classmate without meaning to. I think I had trouble sleeping that night too, going over it in my mind again and again. Then it finally hit me that a lot of my beliefs, and therefore my parents' beliefs, were pretty hateful at their core. Gays were just confused pedophiles. People of color were simply less intelligent. Middle Eastern and Indian people were scary to see at airports. Liberals were cowards who wanted to steal our rights, kill God, and turn us all vegan. Gasp. Yes, I was very much raised to hold those beliefs. From that point forward, I started questioning pretty much everything I had been taught because I didn't want to hate anyone, but I had been taught to. I'm so ashamed of what I used to believe, and occasionally still think back to the look in her eyes. Sometimes I get choked up thinking about how cruel I was by saying it so nonchalantly. It motivates me to keep an open mind and always do research before developing an opinion on an important topic, especially when I hear something that reminds me of my upbringing. Needless to say, my mom and I don't get along much these days because I'm pretty liberal, laugh out loud. Story 18. When I was younger, in my early 20s in the early 2000s, I broke down in the middle of nowhere, Missouri. This was around Thanksgiving time. A very openly gay man pulled over to offer me a ride. I wasn't really in a position to be picky about the help I was being offered, so he gave me a ride to the next town, Springfield. I remember one of the first things he said to me was that he's gay, and I looked at him and I said, "I think Helen Keller could tell that you're gay," and he laughed heartily. Anyways, we get to Springfield, he takes me to a Denny's, and gets me a hot plate to eat after being in the cold most of the night while we wait for the tow place to open. The tow cost more than I had available at the time, so he paid for it. It was a truly small gesture in the grand scheme of things, but I had always said that I wanted to be surrounded by good people, and it made me realize that I wasn't being the good person that I wanted. Made me realize that I was being mean to people who generally didn't deserve it. We exchanged information and kept in contact for a long time until he passed away in 2016. I flew out to his funeral in South Carolina where he resided at the time. At the funeral, I learned that he led a whole life of helping strangers when they needed it. So many people showed up to his funeral and had similar stories of a good-natured man who just wanted to make his corner of the world a little better. Like a fabulous Fred Rogers. Story 19. I was never a "I will verbally berate gay people" kind of homophobe, but I was definitely a use homophobic slurs in casual conversation and think homosexuality is weird kind of person. One day, I was self-reflecting and I had the thought, wait, why do I care at all about something that literally doesn't affect me in the tiniest bit? A tiny thought, but from that day, I went from you, gay people, to a staunch supporter and vocal ally of the community. These days, almost all of my close friends are queer, and the running joke is them asking me why I choose to be straight, to which I respond, why would I choose to be the straight guy in a group of fully queer people? I am actually kind of sad that I lean so far straight on the sexuality spectrum because life would be so much more fun if I was sexually attracted to my friends.